Good morning, everyone. Good Monday morning.
Good morning.
I hope everyone had a nice weekend. I don't know if you know, but we're having a heat wave in this neck of the woods.
Oh yeah, you guys are getting really hot, huh?
Really hot, yeah.
Yeah.
Portland hit an all-time high since 1860, since they've been keeping records. I have to admit, though, that I'm at the beach, so I have been hearing about it all weekend because my family and friends are in Portland, but my sister and I are over here at the beach, and we are missing the 100-degree weather, thankfully. I don't do well in that kind of weather. But it's still warm here for the beach. Okay, Ella, if you wouldn't mind doing share screen for me, or allowing me to do share screen.
You should be a co-host now.
Okay. Well, welcome to session 5. Or 5. I'm sorry, Monday morning for me, not for you. Welcome to session 4 of our training. Okay, this is what we're focusing on today. I'm going to continue and encourage us to keep moving forward, and even though we still need to practice, we are going to go over pick up where we left off somewhat and go over ambivalence. The way I like to think it is, my balance is off. I even talked about that in one of my team meetings. A few weeks ago, I said I feel out of balance with what's happening with my work life and my home life, and so sometimes that word ambivalence, it's a big word, and it's really just, that's what it is feeling out of balance and not listening to myself inside, responding to others and not responding to what's happening inside, and then creating a balance. So that's a big part of what we're going to talk about today. If we have time, we will practice. But I also know that there are advanced learners in our group, and they've been probably patiently waiting for this idea of change talk. So we're going to focus on change talk today as well, with the understanding that we probably won't get to process 4, which is planning. I hold off on doing planning in a follow-up session. And I also want you to know that whatever you share with us today, I pay attention to, so that I can send you a follow-up note. So part of learning MI is doing that practice session and getting some feedback, either from your peers or who are more advanced, or myself. So we do have we have 2 practice sessions scheduled that I want to encourage all of you to come to. The first one is in July 12th, and I'll go over the 4th process in that meeting, as well as take any questions that you have about thinking. What you've either tried MI, you weren't comfortable with how it went, you were comfortable with how it went, but you had a question, something like that. So practice sessions are just that. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to start off. Well, before I do that, let's go back. I kind of I don't really like talking at people that much, but I do want to check in with people. Let's see, what do I want to ask? And if you'd all, at your comfort level, just check in with me and let me know your thoughts. It also will help me frame what we do today, so I can create a focus for myself based on what is important to you. So In this training process, have you had any random thoughts that you would like me to address, or we can talk about together like we did last time, in terms of anything, like the content of the training, the strategies related to the content, how you feel like you're doing personally in terms of the fit. Is this a fit for you, hand in glove? The application in your setting, that's usually a topic that people, they may really like MI, but they're not sure how it fits in their setting. Their support that they feel like they're getting in their work site. Something related to that. If you wouldn't mind sharing, what would be important for us to consider in today's session that I can weave into our slideshow and further going forth. So let's just take a moment. Think about what's important to you. Thank you, Jean. And let's just take some time for reflection. And what's one thing that you feel really good about, that you feel like this training has confirmed for you? And one thing you think you'd want more practice on? Let's just start it like that. And we're getting some chat discussion, so that's good. And yeah, this is a nice group to work with. I'll echo that. I enjoy working with you as a group. It'd be nice to carry on for practice sessions. So I appreciate everybody's involvement and contribution. Yes, Tosha, I am actually going to spend time on that today because I realized I have become so familiar with you that I wasn't paying attention. And I thought about it over the weekend, and I thought I need to spend time and open-ended questions. So I'm going to do that today. And I apologize that I haven't done it earlier.
Oh, I didn't realize I had myself on microphone.
Well,
I saw Stacy.
nice to share a good laugh.
I know.
Haha, Stacy. Stacy's, I think I ran Sean off. It was
Yes.
too difficult. I hope not. I hope
It's very much of the I don't knows.
Yeah. You want to be careful how you apply this, that you don't overdo it. But yeah, yeah. I think that people who do I don't know and nobody's ever processed it with them, and you start to process it with them, it's like, uh-oh, I can't say I don't know anymore. I have to make a commitment. Yeah, Kathy, I think I saw your face. I don't know if you meant to. Jamie, yeah. Reflect, yeah, thank you for that. Reflection and summary. Yeah, summaries. Actually, when I was learning MI, I had to learn more about how to phrase an open-ended question. But I was really good at summarizing. So we'll talk about that. Yeah, that's it. Reflecting and summarizing, they're one and the same. Summaries are a form of reflection. They're just a particular type of a reflection, and all. I can review that. Oh, good one, Kellen. Yeah. So we might want to rephrase the trauma as ambivalence, but we'll talk about ambivalence, and you let me know if you think that makes sense in terms of it's kind of reframing it. It's like it's reframing the trauma in a more positive way, like don't let it get in your way, allow it to motivate you towards something more positive in your life. But you let me know if when we go over the ambivalence, you let me know if it makes sense to do that. I don't really know. So it also could be Yeah. Yeah. So being super careful about not pushing people too far, so where they get nervous and they want to,
I
based
guess
on their
maybe
style.
I'll go ahead and go off mute since I'm like, I guess like what I think of is this day-to-day life. So we have the motivations there, but like in a family situation, if they're in home, like one of the goals might be like, well, I don't want to run away from home anymore. I don't want to leave. But if something happens in that home, that triggers that trauma response. They leave home, and that's
It's
where
survival.
yep, there's a lot of survival. So that's what I mean is the ongoing community trauma kind of can trigger a lot of the motivation to change. Like they want to, but like that trauma response when it's triggered, it's like that's how they feel safe, is doing
Yeah.
what kind of change.
Yeah. Yeah.
To that and working with addictions, like some people want to quit and they're like, I'm sick of this, I really want to quit, but they're living in a home where everybody else is still using, or their family's still using, you know what I mean? So it's like very difficult for them to get triggers because it's there every day, all day long. And so I kind of can relate to it in that form, like where people can be really motivated. I'm tired of this, I'm sick of this, but I just can't get sober because it's all around me. And then I talked to him about going to treatment, then like going away to treatment, but then sometimes they're like, well, I know I'm going to have to come back here when I'm done then, or move to a different community, which is scary,
Or look at the health of the community, how they can be a part of, and you can support them, and we can support them by looking at the health of the community. What role can they play with the tribal council, the elders, medicine people? What role can they play to support the health of the community? They're not my thought is, if they're suffering, other people are suffering too. And they're suffering in silence, is what I'm hearing. But what would happen if they weren't so silent anymore, and there was like a snowball effect of, I want to live in a healthy community, I need help. Where can I go to find that help? It is overwhelming. I mean, that's a lot of overwhelmingness, really. So what are their options? And, if there's nothing in the community, which I don't really know. Last time I was in Eagle Butte, though, there was a lot of healthy things going on right out in the community. I was in the summer. There were a lot of healthy activities right there near the laundromat. And then there was a drug deal going on the corner, right in the same place. So they're confronted with both realities. And okay, well, where do I go? I have to admit that more people were surrounded by the healthy activity than the drug deal on the corner. So that tells me there's some health in at least that community. But how do you help your clients or the people you're working with engage with that and not feel awkward or out of place? Family is different. Family life is a challenge. I'm not going to lie. Family life is because sometimes you feel like you have to abandon your family to get better. And that's daunting. To me, that's daunting. So when your family is suffering with substance use, where do I go? And that's a good question to ask the community, but it's also a good question to have, to work with them to figure out, well, what are my options, and maybe do, like an agenda mapping if you can. But I think you also have to know the community. Maybe there's things going on that you don't know, that they don't know. Yeah. working with young people is a whole other thing. So in addition to everything we're talking about, you've got their development going on at the same time. And maybe on a follow-up session, we can talk about that. It is because that was the population that I spent most of my time with in my career, was young adults and adolescents. And that's a whole other thing. So what we traditionally do with adults is not what you're necessarily going to do with teenagers or young adults. So let's reserve that, Kellen, for a follow-up session. Maybe we could have a focus on that, and maybe think about, from a Native perspective, what have they learned? What have you learned? And maybe think about that between now and the next time for the follow-up session. What is normal Native youth development? What do you think it is? What have you observed? What is happening there? Because some of the theories about it might be helpful, but there's also the Native perspective about it. So what would you consider to be a normal, healthy developmental process for someone between the ages of, say, 12, which is very young, to maybe 30 or 25 or 26? A lot of the developmental theorists stop their ideas around 25, 26 because it's about brain development. Brain development would fit. But then what about cultural development? What about emotional development? What about intellectual development? So let's reserve that one, because I think that's the overlay for young adults and adolescents. How are they doing? You know, how would you assess for brain development? How would you assess for normal developmental process from a kid that grows up on the reservation? You know, what's kind of considered normal for them? And then think about their family members as not developed, because alcoholism or drug addiction has interfered with their development. So I would encourage you to think about that before we try to put MI on top of it. Because I think anything you do to try and help, you'd have to consider that. Where are they at in their development? What's missing? That kind of stuff.
I think that's actually where most of my team is at. Grant, Sabrina, Keaton, myself, Lavelle, and Connie. We work with 10 to 24. So when we were required to work with to come to these sessions, and I think that's where, I think us learning those skills will probably help. But that's our primary. What you just described, our primary population is reservation youth, high risk youth. With complex, things going on. And so I think we were hoping that that's what the MI would somehow complement that, what we're facing. So I think, if that's something in the future for us, that would be most helpful for us to kind of look at that population.
Well, I'm willing to commit to that in July, that's where our focus would be, if that would be helpful. So your team can come to that meeting. Well, that's what our focus will be. I don't want to make it for today because there's material to go over. Once you have some general training on the concepts and language of MI, then we can really start to play around with it. So what I'd probably ask your team to think about is what answer from each person's perspective what they think about that. What are the normal developmental processes that your youth go through that we need to consider? And I know from a brain development perspective, there are some real issues in terms of what they're capable of doing. And a lot of times we adults people that haven't had their history or their situation expect too much out of them. And so it's because we don't understand what they don't have. We just assume that they have certain things that they maybe don't. And kids are not going to tell you because they're just not, in my experience. So, so think about it from a physical brain developmental. What do you know about brain development? Second, what are the trauma things happening that would interfere with normal developmental process for them, including mental, physical, spiritual, cultural, emotional, and then factor in those developmental pieces, because what you're going to do is you're going to apply the ORs to that. So think about it that way. You've got spirit and style down. Well, let's assume, you have to engage them. And I'm assuming people felt pretty good about that skill in our group, our training group. So now we're like trying to apply the ORs to that. And so I have to think, okay, where are they at? Meet them where they're at. That's what Jamie was talking about. How do I know that I'm accurately meeting where they're at? How do I know that? What kind of feedback am I getting? And then when I'm in the interaction, remember the focus stage of change is about focusing on something, not their whole life, not the trauma, the whole experience of trauma related to getting triggered, but what is something specific that's manageable, that's doable, that they can think about focusing on as a first step. And that might be, that's going to vary from kid to kid, but it's like am I afraid to have hope for change question? Because the I don't know might be, well, I do know what I want to do, but I don't feel hopeful about it. So how do you address that in an MI way, factoring in the culture? What's out, what are they dealing with on the outside? What's available to them that they're not aware of? How can they get involved and build confidence, because that's an issue for young people? How can I feel confident that I will be listened to, because the adults in my life don't listen to me, and in fact they might discourage them? So how do I deal with discouragement when my family members are all drinking and not supporting me, my sobriety? Those are all really good focus questions for applying MI. MI is not going to solve all the problems, but it can create hope. It can create confidence. It could build, the idea is you build on success. It can highlight resiliency within the context of a specific thing, like how did you know how to come and talk to me about this issue? That's resiliency. That's showing some skill set. All right. Now I saw Keaton going in and out. Oh, I think, well, we have more than one Keaton. I don't know if you had something you needed to say, or was it Grant? Visually, you were going in and out. There you are. Did you have something to say?
It was regarding our youth, but I know we're going to save that for another time. So,
oh, go ahead and mention whatever. I don't want to shut anybody down.
I was just going to say, like, the differences of working with a lot of the transitioning traditional culture upbringing Native youth, or even older ones, and then being up here in Rapid City, knowing, and then the different topics that are going around. It's almost like we're advocating for a lot of them, but we're also at the same time, it's probably distorting their growth in somewhat, because they have to worry about how to live in the Western European style way and upbringing. But whereas a lot of it is they're getting the mixed messages from the parents about, we didn't have this growing up, I want you to do this. when you get up there or when you get older, you need to work hard. I want you. And so at a young age, I feel like they're getting distorted and thinking, well, I have a destiny that my parents didn't get, so I need to fulfill it. And now I need to learn this and I need to work hard. And then pretty soon we have a lot of stressed out. I just feel like that's one of the things that goes underneath that nobody talks about. The other one was just culture and religion. It's a hard topic, but
Yeah.
a lot of our foster parents, a lot of our upbringing of parents going into traditional to Catholic or Christian, or Catholic and Christian going into tradition, it's a really upside down mixture of how the way, and then, but a lot of it's being overseen, because if you do it through my religion perspective, it's all okay. Nobody could argue with it. I'm not a bad parent. I'm not raising them wrong. Nobody can argue with me, you know? And then, so then a lot of our youth get distorted with that too. So I think just advocating in there, I want to go more in depth and work with that and use MI to kind of help me see how I could say things in a good way where I don't have to upset the parents, but then be advocates for the youth.
Yeah.
Otherwise I'm gonna be the bad guy that just saying, oh, they're after our parenting, and you know, they're trying to say we're bad people for being religious, for being cultural. But you know, all in all, it's like, no, we're distorting the messages of how these young people need to be young, but then also trying to have them grow up too fast. So I hope I said that right. But anyway, that's what I wanted to just say.
It sounds like not only are you dealing with the youth, you're dealing with the family, the parenting particularly. And it would be helpful to focus on the parents and how to respond to them, but also while you're helping the stress levels of the young people as they're trying to negotiate this new way of, you know, a lot thrown at them. And they are trying to be respectful, but they get confused and they go, which is normal for kids. Whatever. Well, I could do a role play with that. The main thing I'm hearing though is for me listening in terms of MI, you know, putting MI on layering on that would be, what is my focus? What am I trying to do here? What are they? Have I negotiated the conversation? Are we talking about the same thing? Once that's done, that's focus, stage 2. Once that's done, you can really easily have a conversation with applying MI. But without that focus, you could be working at cross purposes. And so it's really like it's process 1, engagement. I think sometimes what happens is we think we have engagement and then we lose it. And then we realize later that we've lost the engagement. So we go back to, oh, I've lost the engagement. So I have to go back to that, re-engage, and then I can move forward. And that's what happens. I think I'm talking about the same thing that they're interested in. I feel like I've negotiated the conversation, so we're talking about the same thing, and then something pulls them back. And it's not related to what you personally. It's related to what Kellen was talking about. They get triggered, something happens, they go back, then we realize that they're not with us anymore. We get confused, and so they're kind of falls apart there. But so I think that reflections and summaries, going back to Jamie's comment earlier, that's the way to get out of that. Remember to always reflect more than you ask questions. And also those summary statements, those summary reflections will make a huge difference to make sure that you're on the same path with them, that they haven't gone off on a side path emotionally or mentally. All right, so if we want to focus on summaries and questions, open-ended questions today, that would be a good session for us today. But I'm also going to continue on in the PowerPoint. I think what I'll do first, though, based on our conversation, is I'm going to pull up those scripts. How many of you got a copy of this in the follow-up email? Did you guys get a copy of this handout? So I'm going to start here because this is more of a practice thing. So Ella, if you could keep track of the chat room box for me in this.
Okay.
It's hard for me to, it's kind of hard to do both for me.
Mhm.
I don't know. Can you guys still see this okay? Or did I just block it? Oh, okay. Here we go. Okay. All right. How many of you got a copy of this? And did anyone have a chance to practice with it? And if you did, great. Then we'll practice together today. So what I think would be helpful is, let's go. There's 3 scripts in this. There's 3 of them. We can change the age to any of them. So we can make Lou we can make it a teenage thing. I tried to have a variety of ages. So we had an older woman, middle-aged, a 22-year-old, and a younger one. So let's make Josh. We'll make Josh down the road. We'll make him a little bit younger. So let's start with the 22-year-old. Okay.
Hey, Kathy.
Yeah.
Can you zoom in a little bit on the
Can I-
bottom?
Okay. Zoom in. Is that what you said?
Get closer.
You mean
Other-
bigger?
Yeah, bigger. Okay,
Oh,
there.
okay. Oh, that's
Perfect.
All
And
right.
then it looks like some people did get them and some people did not.
say that again.
Some people did get this and some people didn't.
Okay, well, we'll just do it together. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to read the script. And I would like, there's open spaces for the OARS. And I would like us to practice the ORS, and but we're going to write it down, or we're going to think about it. You don't have to write it if you don't want to write it. Just think about how you would respond. Put it in the chat box, and then we'll review each one, or just say it out loud. It'd be faster to say it out loud, but I'll do whatever's comfortable for you. And then we'll kind of do a little bit of practice. So Jeb is a 22-year-old native kid from Juneau. He is in Seattle for work and to visit with family and friends. One night he went out with his buddies and ended up in the ER having a bad reaction to some opioids. So this is what he said. I call my friend Ernie when things get too tense at home. He is always there and takes good care of me. About a week ago, I ended up in the ER. I got into some drugs and had a bad reaction, so Ernie took me to the ER. Good thing Ernie was only drunk. He said I could have overdosed. I said, nah, but after I blacked out and woke up in the ER, I got a good lecture from the doc. He said I was lucky. So they sent me here to see you. I'm not sure what you're supposed to do. I'm okay now. So think about that. Think about about Jeb and your response. You can ask an open question. You can affirm. You can reflect. You can. Well, summary would be hard in this one until later, because I'll try to respond, or maybe even better is pretend you're Ernie as well. But I'll try to respond once we get a list of potential responses. So think of an open-ended question, think of a reflection or an affirmation that you can do, or a quick summary if you wanted to try just a really quick summary statement. So let's start with who thought of an open-ended question? And would you be willing to share it?
I can go.
Okay.
An open-ended question would be, what do you think would have happened if your friend Ernie wasn't there? Just to get him to think a little bit about the situation.
Okay. Started with a what, which is always nice. It forces them to think. What do you think what would happen if Ernie wasn't there? What do you think his response would be?
I don't know.
Yeah, right. Possibly. Yeah. Okay. I don't know. That could be a response. And you've already known how to deal with the I don't know. You can play around with that. Before you do, though, I'd say, I would do 2 reflections. So let's go to reflections. So let's say, I don't know, what kind of reflections would you respond to, or did you write or think about?
I put a reflection, but it wasn't an I don't know response, I guess.
It's fine. Yeah, whatever you want to do.
I didn't say what I put? Or?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Did you say, yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay. Let me turn this dang thing off.
It was this,
I got, my phone is interrupting my sound. Go ahead, Jamie, and share your reflection.
well, I just put it sounds to me like you went through a scary experience due to some drugs that you did with your friends. But what I'm hearing is you feel the issue has been resolved and you're not sure why you're here. Is that correct? Like, or
Say that first part again, Jamie.
Sounds to me like you went through a scary experience due to some drugs that you did with your friends. But what I'm hearing is you feel the issue's resolved and you're not sure why you're here.
You're not sure why you're here. So lower your voice at the end.
Because I'm
You're
not
not
sure
sure.
what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Or you're not
That's-
sure how I can help you.
Yeah. And that is what we would call a complex reflection, because you added some meaning to it. So that is an advanced reflection. Good job. I'm going to go back to the question. So I don't want to think that I'm not going to address that, but I think we have to have an interaction to do it. So here's a strategy. Every time you ask an open-ended question, you wait for the response, and then you do a minimum of 2 reflections and reflections can be just a repeat, or it could be more advanced where you add something into it. Like Jamie added scared. Sounds like you went through something that was really scary. He didn't say it was scary. She felt it potentially from this kid and added it in. So that's more of an advanced reflection. Okay, so that's the skill set. All right, so let's hear another reflection. And then I'm going to go back to the open-ended. Anybody thought of a reflection?
I did, if someone else.
Okay.
I thought usually majority of mine is kind of if I've built enough rapport or if I have the attention of the person, I usually have a firm approach.
Okay, great.
And I don't know. So I don't know if I'm using this right, but I would just feel like, well, I'm glad everything's okay. To be quite honest, this is something that was very dangerous. It could go either way. If this happened more than once, and if this is your way of just trying to have a good time, it's not very healthy. This is something that could lead to something very fatal. And I think that you were lucky. Your friend was there, but at the same time, this is something not good for you, and we're gonna have to take a closer look at this and try to find out some other solutions and know that, try to come to an understanding that this wasn't right and this is something you shouldn't be doing. I don't
Okay,
know.
so thank you for trying. What do you think his response would be to that? If you were him, now be him, what do you think his response would be?
I would hope. I would hope that it would be like, yeah, it's not good, and that's something that it could have turned out to be the worst, and but I don't care. Maybe I'll find a way for him to open up like that, but I don't care. Well,
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
you know?
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
that's a potential scenario that we can play out a little bit. Okay, thank you for trying. And the complexity, this is good. What we're doing is really good because it'll create some clarity for people. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, now I'm going to play out, and then I want you guys to play out with me. I'm going to play out that first question. So whoever did that first question, and for me personally, it helps to see the person, because I'm going to do, well, first, who was it that did that question? Who? Oh, Eltina, hi. Thank you. All right. So could you, I'm going to be Ernie just briefly. Okay. So, and I'm going to respond to your question. So let's play that out a little bit. So go ahead and pretend like I'm Ernie and ask me that question.
You mean Jeb?
Yeah,
Or you
I'm going to be Jeb temporarily. Yeah, and then I'm going to respond to your question. But I
Okay,
couldn't
Jeb.
remember the question.
So what would you have done if your buddy Ernie wasn't there?
Okay, now that's an open-ended question. Now, think about this. What, and I don't know, because you'd have to tell us, what assumption is below the question? So what are you, when you think about asking that question, what was the assumption, or what was the hope? If I asked this question, what was the hope that would happen with Jeb? And so you tell me what you hope how Jeb might respond to that.
I would hope that Jeb understands the seriousness of his decision. The fact that his buddy was only drunk, and that he himself said that he possibly overdosed, and that the doctor also said that he was lucky, meaning there was a chance that he could have potentially died.
Yeah.
And I don't think that Jeb understands that.
Yes, I agree. Yes. All right. So if Jeb doesn't understand that, and Jeb in his adolescent, young adult mind thinks that way, here's what I think Jeb might do with that. And then we'll do 2 reflections beyond that. You don't have to do it, Eltina, because I'm working with your open-ended question. All right. So being Jeb, being 22, and I'm hearing the underlying meta communication. People think I should take this more seriously. Here's what I might say. Well, you know, Ernie's always there. So Ernie is always there. I never do anything without Ernie. So now what I want you guys to do is, what are you going to do next? Are you going to ask another open-ended question? Are you going to reflect? Are you going to affirm? Are you going to do a summary? What are you going to do at this point? Think about what you would do. And when you're ready, we're kind of, what we're doing, just kind of put a little context on this, is we're kind of all together doing a role play together, but we're doing it by mixing and blending the oars. So what would be, say you were in there working with Ernie, what would be your next thing to do? And a tip for you, remember, every open-ended question, you do 2 reflections. So if I were going to do a reflection, what would I do?
Wouldn't you just basically reiterate the fact that he's saying, I don't have to worry about anything because my friend Ernie's always there? Is that what you're saying? So he's saying that, oh, well, Ernie's always there. So what I'm hearing you say is that you don't have to worry about your substance use and the dangers that come with it because your friend Ernie will always be there to take care of you. And so nobody else really needs to worry about you. Is that kind of what you're saying?
That's good, Jamie. Okay, you just did a couple of very interesting things there.
I can't hear it. I wonder what I'm doing wrong. Oh, unmute.
Ah, okay. Well, let's, so let me respond to what Jamie's reflection was. Jamie, you want to just say it as a reflection and I'll respond as Ernie.
So what you're telling us is that you're not worried about your substance use and no one else really needs to worry about you because your friend Ernie is always there for you when you're using. So everything.
Okay, so I'm coaching you right now. Is that okay? Can I coach you? Okay. So when you finish a statement, drop your tone of voice because then it comes out as a question.
Okay.
So drop your tone of voice. So just go ahead and practice that for a minute.
So like, I can't remember what I said now. So what you're saying,
It doesn't matter. What you got the idea.
whenever you're using or have any problems because of your use, your friend Ernie is always there to take care of you. And so
well, go ahead.
I was gonna say, so you don't feel like anybody really needs, you're not really worried and no one else really needs to worry about your use.
Well, he's there most of the time. He's not always there. Okay, you just made me do something interesting. And you made me think. That's what you want to do, is you want to get this kid to start thinking about what's really going on. Well, now that you said that, yeah, Ernie's not always there. So I guess I was lucky that Ernie was there. Okay, what's your second reflection? Not Jamie, you don't have to do it. I want everyone to feel comfortable to practice. So let's go to somebody else. What's going to be a reflection to that? From a trainer's perspective, what we're doing is really good. And I know it's uncomfortable sometimes to do it in a group, but think of, what do I need to learn? What do I need to practice right now in this moment? And you're all learners, and there's no mistake. You know, that you're all learners. So just think of it that way. You're not going to be perfect at this. And I want you to feel comfortable to build up some confidence. So I'm going to play this out in our large group so you can see it. And also learn from each other. What am I going to do next if I'm the person talking to Ernie? Am I going to ask a question? Am I going to reflect? Will I affirm? Will I do a summary? There's different things I could do here. And each one of you might have a different response. If you can turn on your video too, that would be helpful. Okay, Kellen, go for it. There you go.
What was can you repeat what he had said? What Ernie?
Can I repeat what Ernie said?
Or what Jeff said?
Oh,
am
right.
Am I doing a prompt? Am I responding to a prompt?
Yeah. Because Jamie's reflection was, again, Jamie, it's a complex reflection. And it's also a thinking reflection, because right so far Ernie's like, no problem, no problem, no problem. And then boom, here comes that reflection. And it's like, okay, that just made me think. I had to think on that one. And the response was, well, yeah, Ernie's not always there. I can't remember what I said, but it's along in that line of thinking. Yeah, well, he's not always there. So I had to stop and think about, yeah, well, what would happen if I was in trouble and I didn't have anybody there to help me? So what would be your follow-up to that?
I'd probably do a quick reflection of just that. So there are times people aren't, or sometimes there's moments Ernie isn't there. What are those times like for you?
Oh, good. So what you just did is you did a reflection with an open-ended question. Boom, boom. Did you see that? Okay. Did you hear the open-ended question? So that's a strategy. So kind of what we're practicing is okay, I know what an open-ended question is. I know what affirm, a summary, blah, blah, blah. Now I'm strategically using it. And that's what mixing and blending the ors is I'm strategically using MI. Okay, so you affirmed, yeah, okay, you acknowledge that there are times when your friends aren't going to be there, and then you asked an open-ended question. So remind us again, what was your open-ended question?
What are the times like when she's not there?
So what do I do when my friends aren't there? And here's what our
What is
friend
it
would
when your friends are not there?
say. That again.
What is it like when your friends are not?
What is it like when your friends aren't there? So what's the underlying assumption there? You know that the friends aren't always there. He didn't say that, but you're taking a guess, which is perfectly acceptable, that you're thinking,
Was it, I thought you said that Ernie said sometimes he isn't always there. So I'm asking.
yes,
Okay.
but it's a guess. See, sometimes you're going to guess and you're going to throw it out there, and if you guessed wrong, they tell you, and if you guess right, they tell you. So I'm going to guess right in my response, and I go, well, when my friends aren't there, sometimes I know I'm drinking and using too much, and so there have been times when my friends aren't there. I do it in private, and I try to stay home or stay close to home, because sometimes I do overdo it, meaning using or drinking. Okay, we're making good progress with this kid.
That
We
was
really-
the response.
Can you affirm him at this time and be like, I think
Yeah, we'll try that.
it's great that you're recognizing that you don't trust yourself using drugs and alcohol, or that you
That's
are-
a good affirmation. Yeah.
that you're understanding that you put yourself in danger when you drink and use drugs or something like that. Can't you just acknowledge that he's acknowledging it? Or
I was gonna
Yeah.
say I was gonna do an affirmation as well.
Okay, so go ahead, because we're practicing. We want people to hear it more than think. We externalize what your thoughts are.
Go ahead,
So
Jamie.
go, either one of you or anybody else that wants to do an affirmation. Let's practice that. Anybody have an affirmation ready to go?
I thought Jamie did. What did you say?
If anyone has an affirmation statement ready to go, that in terms of responding to what our client just said. Affirmations, remember what affirmations are. Affirmations are supportive statements. The best affirmations have some kind of empathy or emotion. They tend to highlight people's strengths. They tend to be empathic. They tend to encourage movement towards a positive outcome. That's what affirmation statements are. So if you have one in mind, what was it about our client that you could affirm? And if anyone has one, let's just throw out a couple. Remember, this kid went from no problem to, oh, well, maybe. Oh, well, really, maybe. And how did we get there? Mixing and blending open-ended reflections, questions to reflections. How did we get there? The open-ended questions required this person to think and react. And then the person thought and reacted. And then we came in with reflections that highlighted that And now we're here where we can affirm something. What can we affirm? Anybody?
I think it's great you realize you have some risky substance use issues and may not trust yourself to keep yourself safe when you're using.
Well, yeah, but I don't know how risky it is, but yeah, there are times I don't trust myself because I know I overdo it. What are we going to do next?
And I was just saying, I think it's great that you acknowledge that you're starting to become aware of that.
Yeah, my whole family overdoes it. My whole community overdoes it. So it's kind of normal. It's
And you
not.
reflect here, right? Yeah.
Oh, there's a lot of things that you could do here. It just depends on what you want to do and why you want to do it. What do you guys think? If you want to practice an open-ended question, here's a good spot to do it. What kind of open-ended question might you ask? And I'm going to toss it over to Tosha to see how she's doing with this. This is your opportunity to think about that. And usually open-ended questions start with what or how or describe. As you know, so what words do I use to make something open? You could do a reflection that ends up being a question, because you could say you blah 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 blah, and then you could raise your tone of voice and it could turn out to be a question. So what do you guys think?
There's some pretty good examples in the comments.
Yeah, I wasn't paying attention to that. What are you noticing in the comments?
About that it's digging deeper into some of the things that he said. For me, I would want to know what does normal mean to them.
Yeah, so that's an open-ended question. What does normal mean to you? Okay, so I'm going to respond to that one. I'm also going to go back to reflect the importance of the provider's relationship with Ernie. I want to talk about that afterwards. Okay, well, what does normal mean to me? Well, you know, in my community, in my family, they're drinking and using a heck of a lot more than me. So, although they don't like me doing it, you know, they want me to be different. They don't want me to be in trouble with substances. And so I haven't told them that I've been in the ER because I don't want them to worry about me. I've tried to keep that away from them, but there's a lot of drinking and drugging going on, and I'm not as bad as most people that I'm aware of. So, okay, so now what am I going to do? What are you going to do as the provider or the helper? Anybody?
I'm gonna try take a shot at it.
Okay.
Your substance use is not, it's not as bad as your family and those around you, yet you feel it's unfair that they expect you to be different, but you sense that they do care about you.
Nice reframe. Yeah, I do think they do care about me, and yeah, they worry about me, and sometimes I worry myself because I don't want to let my family or my community down. I don't want to let anybody down. So I'm a little bit embarrassed about ending up in the ER because, you know, there's the drunken Indian story or the using Indian. I don't want people to know that.
What could you do to ensure you won't end up in the ER again?
I don't know. I haven't thought about it. I don't think I will. I'm never going to do that again. Okay. And Tosha, you don't have to be, you can practice as much as you want, but I also don't want you to feel any pressure to respond if you're not ready. End up in the ER, Stacy.
What I affirm and appreciate your confidence that you don't want to do that again.
Yeah.
What will you do to make sure it never happens again?
Oh, I'm just not going to use as much.
You'll limit you'll limit your use.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I just won't use as much. And I don't know, maybe I shouldn't be hanging around Ernie as much because he really does drink a lot.
Okay.
Although I didn't get the drugs from Ernie. Ernie's not a druggie. He doesn't do that. I got the drugs from on the street from kind of a casual person, casual acquaintance.
I'm gonna tag out and let
Yeah.
someone else practice.
Yeah. Thank you, though. You're open, by the way, you're open-ended questions were open-ended and they were effective. So just take that with you because I know you were concerned, you wanted to practice that. Anybody want to take a stab? Yeah, Sean.
Yeah, I could play a little bit if you don't mind. So from what I'm hearing, to kind of like sum it up so I can make sure I'm getting the picture right. You don't like the double standard that you're seeing within your family and community on where they're using and yet they expect you not to use. Is that fair to say?
Well, they don't want me to be like them when they're with their struggles. They want me to do better.
They want you to do better. And what do you want? Because I know you don't like the double standard of what they're doing and then that you not doing. And so you're going to reduce your use, but ultimately, like, what do you want out of that? It's not just to reduce use or not use or not appear the same or not be one of those, drunken Indian stories in the hospital. What do you want as a person?
I just want to live my life. I don't want all the stress, I mean, I'm young. I do what young people do.
Right.
I don't think I'm that outside of the norm.
Right. I think you're very normal. And in fact, I think that, that's one of the things that, it goes across cultures where you just kind of want to relax and do the things that everybody else is kind of doing and enjoy it. And then also not be berated by all those people that are doing the exact same thing. That sounds very normal to me. I think you're very normal.
Thank you. I think that, I mean, I'm aware that they're struggling. I get it. I see it. I feel it. I get it. And it's confusing. I'm a little confused because don't do what I say or don't do what I do what I say. And I don't even know. I don't even know what I think about life in general. I'm not sure about life in general. I don't know how to think about it.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. It is confusing. A lot of wishy-washy thing. And I think I'm just more interested to hear, what you want more specifically out of it, just because you already know that what you don't want. And I think a lot of times that when we know what we don't want, it kind of gives us the answer of what we do want. And so I just want to know how you want to go about achieving that. What are some things that you can set up so that you spend less time with Ernie, or maybe when you meet that casual acquaintance, you defer not to buy anything, or one of those things that you do that just helps you from going over the board, over the edge, and blacking out.
Can I do a timeout, Sean?
Yeah, please.
Okay. I see where you're going, and I have mixed feelings about where you're going because it's too far in the future for me.
Okay.
And so that would be the learning for all of us is take the lead from the person. So here's how I'm going to contextualize it so you understand the response. Wow, that's way too much. I can't go there. That's way too much to think about. Oh man, now I'm feeling triggered.
Sure.
Like, oh, wow. Gee, that drink sounds really good right now. I think I might need to go get a drink. I'm feeling like, wow, that's a little heavy. So that's the emotional reaction I'm having. The thing that I'm going to tell you is, I don't know. I have no idea how to answer all of that. I'm still trying to figure out how to get back home.
Right.
I got to get back to Juneau. I got to go pretty soon. So I got to figure out how I'm going to get home because I spent all my money on drugs. And I don't want to call my parents. I got to figure out, maybe one of my friends will lend me some money so I could get back home. 22-year-old response would be, I'm not that serious about it. I'm just not. I don't have the capability. I don't want to. It's too much for me to think about. So let's assume you got that response. What are you going to do next?
I would probably try and throw in like an affirmation of that overwhelm, the feeling of too much. So,
well, remember, all you got was, I don't know. I need to figure out a way to get back to Juneau.
Right. Yeah.
You may not. Well, you could have felt it. You could have felt the overwhelmness.
Yeah. That'd be nice if I was that intuitive.
Well, you might be.
I mean, you could just even acknowledge, like, it sounds to me like you're really overwhelmed with thinking about all of that. Maybe we could just back up and start with something simple. Like, do we even know if this person wants to change? I don't
Exactly.
Not even there.
I think that this person is truly ambivalent.
Yeah.
They really are, because you get change talk, and I'm going to go over some material in a second, and then you get the other side, the sustain talk, where status quo, keep things the same. And then you get the change talk, and there's that ambivalence going on. It's like, I get it. I mean, this person does know what you're saying, and they do understand what you're saying. It's just they're not even close to being ready to make any significant changes. And it is a little scary to affirm what's scary. So it's double scary, right? So you all are reacting to how scared you are for this person's behavior, because he could have died. It's serious. He, on the other hand, is also scared, but he has to minimize it because of all the other things going on, all the levels of stress that he's under. So you have to back up because it's too much. But you want to keep the momentum going because you've got him thinking, you've got him considering maybe some options, you're doing the affirmations. So you just don't want to get ahead of the person, because then you lose them. I got to get back to Juneau. Where can I find money? Can you help me find money to get back to Juneau? I mean, then it's not about what just happened, it's about something else. And so the focus got lost. And how does it get lost? Because we take the side of the ambivalence. We take the side that says, let's change. I want you to see how serious this is. Let me get you engaged in change. When we do that and they're not ready, we lose them. And this kid isn't ready. He's got a lot of ambivalence. Kellen, I can't hear you, but I see that you're saying something.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I was going to say, I know we all had a chance, but I think there was a lot of valuable things shared about the values that showed ambivalence about some of his values. But I think the biggest part of what he talked about too was managing stress. So a part that he's ambivalent on is, here's this stress, here's how I'm managing stress, here are the values, here's these conflicts. And I think going in and helping him reflect on those before you're like, drugs are bad, you know what I mean? So I think it's helping him explore, here you're saying this, but on the other hand, you're saying this, you know.
And drugs aren't, and drugs aren't bad to Ernie, or I forget his name, is it Jeb? Anyway, in his mind, it's his way of handling stress. Right. So he's not ready to give up that way of handling stress because he doesn't know any other way yet. I mean, part of the goal would be for you to help him figure that out, but
I think Sabrina asked that question. I think that was another technique.
Say it again.
Sabrina, oh, you guys can't hear me good. I think Sabrina took a different route, you know, and she asked, like, you know, what is stressing you out? You know, what is on your mind? You know, what's going on? Because I think that's kind of, like I said, you know, kind of what Jamie said, you know, you can always do that. Like, you know, you can, I'm sorry, you know, can we back up a little bit? You know, I'd like to.
Right. Yeah. So what Sabrina picked up on was that he was stressed out, and she chose to focus on the tension at home. I think that's, she said, what do you mean when you say things get tense at home? And instead of let's talk about that, I would say, can we talk about that? So ask permission. And Ernie would probably say, oh, I don't want to talk about that. But if you rephrased it to, what do you mean when you say things are stressful? That I think he would talk about, because he's stressed out. He's in the moment stressed out. So if we reframed it to, well, what are you feeling stressed out about? Well, I need to figure out a way to get home because I blew all my money on drugs and alcohol. I'm stressed about that. I'm stressed about what will happen when I get home. You know, have people heard about this already? Because I might be disappointing a lot of people. So I'm stressed out about that. I'm stressed out about, I got myself in that situation and I ended up in the hospital. Oh man, that was really stupid. And I would say those things. So I think your intuition about stay with the stress. But in all of those statements, he isn't ready to change. So I want to, first, I'm going to transition a little bit and talk about some MI stuff, materials, and then I'm going to come back. So I want to thank all of you that are thinking about, you know, how would I respond to this kid? What would I say? I hope that you got some value out of doing that practice, even if you didn't say anything, but I do appreciate the chat comments because that keeps our conversation going. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the share screen and go over some material, and then I'm going to come back and talk with you. So here we are. Okay. And I think some of this might make more sense now that we've had a little playtime. Oh, shoot. Oh, hi, Ramona. Yay.
Oh. Yeah,
okay.
See anything, so hopefully.
All right, so I'm going to go through some visuals around ambivalence. First thing to think about is there's different kinds of ambivalence. There's different types. In the MI text, there's actually 4 different types. So I'm just going to highlight the different types. There's the approach. And think about Jeb. What kind of ambivalence did you hear with him? And then we'll talk about it on the other side. So there's the approach, the good, meaning, oh, what should I have? My two favorite foods, pizza or ice cream. So you feel ambivalent about what to eat, as an example. In Ernie's situation, what is his ambivalence about? Is it good? Is it bad? I'm between a rock and a hard place. So both ways of my ambivalence is unpleasant. Either way I look at it. Is it approach avoidance? Is it that I can go one way and it has positive and negative, or I could go this other way and it has positive or negative? So that's a little bit more complicated, but the closer I approach one side of my ambivalence, the positive side of the other side surfaces. The more I go to the positive side of the other side of my ambivalence, the positive side of the other side. So it's approach avoidance. I do, but I don't. Is that the kind of ambivalence that you saw with Ernie? The double approach avoidance is really the best example. Is, say you have a choice between things that are super important no matter which way you go, and there would be a big loss if I gave up one in favor of the other. So something like I'm a young person and I'm dating two people and I have to pick one. That's a double approach avoidance dilemma. So where do I go? Ambivalence is about making a decision. So in order to help somebody through ambivalent states, you want to be able to be uncomfortable, that you have to experience their discomfort. And you want to stay with them while they're trying to figure out which way to go. This puts you in a position to go stand by them and help them decide which way to go. You're going to gently, through conversation with them, encourage them to do what's healthy or what's in their best interest, which is usually a healthy choice. So, so sometimes we know what we need to do. I think Ernie does know what he needs to do, but he is still ambivalent. He has that stress. He's still worried. So how can I address that? Readiness to change. Okay. So readiness to change goes up and down. And I think we all came to a conclusion that he wasn't ready to focus on a particular behavioral change. So we have to keep staying with him while he's trying to figure out where his readiness is. Follow MI. When you encounter resistance, and I didn't go over how MI views resistance, but you need to change your strategy. So we had to do that because you did experience mild forms of resistance in our role play. So we had to change what we did. So that's so when you get what feels like a resistant thing, when you get an I don't know, don't accept it. Say, okay, I don't know could mean a lot of things to a lot of different people. So let's see what your I don't know says. And then we can do the I don't know, or you could just have a conversation. There's many things you could do there. And then show some self-compassion and maybe teach him some self-compassion while he's struggling with difficult decisions, while he's struggling with things that are really, really tough. Ask him if I would want to know, is there a cultural practice that he could do, a ceremony, talking to an elder, a medicine person, doing some visioning? Is there something culturally that he could do that would help him resolve this ambivalence that he's experiencing? Does he even know what to do culturally? He may or may not, especially if he's going from a village back to this big city, back to a village. Okay, when I say sustained talk, this is MI language that we're talking about. Sustained talk is what a client says that favors not changing, keeping the status quo. Change talk is what a client says that favors movement in the direction of change. So another way to think about it is sustained talk is and you got that from this role play. You got Ernie doing sustained talk. And this is what we did. We used open-ended questions that asked for change talk. So those type of questions require the client to think about change. We did 2 times reflection. There was a reflection that amplified the area of concern, and that's a strategy to evoke change talk. Kellen talked about doing a double-sided reflection on the one hand, then on the other. One thing that you can do with adolescents and young adults is to emphasize their autonomy. Why? Well, because when you're an adolescent and a young adult, developmentally, that's a task for them. Developmentally, that's what they're trying to do, is they're trying to figure out, who am I in relationship to my family, my community, the people, my friends, how am I with others? And so I'm also able to make decisions independent of other people, or maybe I'm struggling with that. And if you can, take an area of sustained talk that you hear and reframe it. And I think Jamie did that. She reframed it into more of a change talk statement. I don't know if you remember all of that, but I heard it. Okay, so what is change talk? Change talk is what the client says that gives you the impression that they are ready to change, even though they're not quite there, but they might be more open to it. And it's usually defined by a particular goal of change. In some of the common conversations that people, or thoughts that people had, the idea was, I need this kid to figure out that he's doing dangerous things and he could have lost his life, and that his drinking or drug taking is harmful to him. That's a change goal. He wasn't there. He wasn't ready for that, but he was moving in that direction by some of the things that people said and did. And that's what you want to keep in mind. Am I moving that person in a direction where they'll keep talking about it, where they might come to some conclusion themselves, where they will eventually commit to doing the change? So let's talk about that. So then we have the darn cats. Some of you may have heard about this. So how do I know people are getting ready to change? They do the darn. And it's not darning by fabric arts. It's darning by, I hear a desire. I hear that they can change if they wanted to. I hear reasons, and I heard a need. So think about Ernie. Did you hear what MI calls it preparatory change talk? Did you hear Ernie have a desire, feel confident, have reasons, or state a need to change? So that's what we call preparatory. Now, because, and you did hear him, what kind, I don't, I'll let you guys tell me. But we didn't hear a commitment. And to get to a commitment, you have to walk through the darn. A commitment means that that the ambivalence is resolved. So it's not, you may still have ambivalence, but it's not so strong that it prevents you from committing, agreeing, being willing to take action. And Ernie was not here. Or Jeb wasn't here, sorry. Jeb was not here. He wasn't ready to commit to make a change. And he had to go through this first. And he had to also do readiness. He had to be, you have to work the readiness. Okay. So I think you had some examples from the role play, but here are some of the words that people might use. I'd like to, I think I could. If I want to stay out of here, then I have to. That's a reason. And I think that Jeb did make one of those type of statements. I've got to do something, or I need to do something. Now, that's the darn. And then when you hear, I'm going to, I have to, I have 90 days clean. When you hear that, that's somebody who's making changes or committing to make a change, and they may need to do a plan for change. Okay, so here's some of the strategies. Asking questions that elicit change talk, and there was a few examples. You can use an important confidence ruler. We didn't do that, but you could have. Looking forward and looking back. So an example of that would be, Jeb, would it be okay if we look back to what you've done in the past related to what got you into the ER? And he might say, well, what do you mean? Well, have you ever been in trouble so much that you should have been at the ER? And he probably would say, well, yeah, now that I think about it. So part of what you're trying to do is get people to think about it. Now, this was a suggestion from Kellen. What about your goals and your values and what you want to accomplish? Obviously, ending up in the ER is not one of your goals in life. You're very uncomfortable with that happening. So, Sean, when you did yours, maybe go to that. You said, well, what do you want? Okay, well, what if you said, would it be okay if we talked about what's important to you values-wise? What are your values? It sounds like you have some values that you'd like to achieve, but going to the ER isn't one of them. Can we talk about that? So that would be a strategy you would use. So you were trying to do that, but what do you want may have been too broad for Jeb because of his development. But okay, let's talk about what you do value and why what happened to you behaviorally isn't one of your values. That might have been an interesting conversation. And kids need that. Kids need help figuring out their goals and values in life. So if you said, well, Jeb, you don't want to end up in the ER for sure. You don't want your family and community to find out what happened. So we know what you need with this incident. Tell me more about that. Might be a good open-ended question, because there's more information that needs to be. You need to hear more information in order to understand where he's at with all of that. And then and then he says something. Then you can tie it to a goal. You can tie it to a value and wait for his response. So that's the strategy. So I think you were in the ballpark. Don't worry about it. So, and then this is for Tosha and others who are wanting to practice open-ended questions. Usually an open-ended question has an assumption behind it. So open-ended questions can be framed when you think about it from this perspective. So when you're talking to Jeb or your clients, what do you hear from them that there are their own reasons for change? So for example, with Jeb. So Jeb, what are the changes you want to make related to going to the ER? So tell me what you think. What are your reasons why you'd want to stay out of the ER? Or I'm hearing that it's really not important to you to stop drinking and using. Tell me more about that. What do you like about drinking and using? Or, and that's about readiness. That's asking a readiness question. How ready are you to start looking at how your drinking and drug taking is getting in your way? How ready are you? And I think back to Grant, what you offered, that's what I would do with what you offered, is I would reframe it to, well, how ready are you to wanting to look at your drinking or drug taking? Or what concerns do you have about your drinking or drug taking? So you had an underlying assumption. It's just putting it more in an open way and making it client-centered. And this is for us as helpers. Am I hearing any change talk? Do I hear any change talk? Do I hear any preparing to change talk? Am I hearing any commitment to change talk? Am I steering too far or too fast in a particular direction? And the writing reflex is, they call it in MI, it's when you want to tell them, go this way. It's kind of a human instinct. I want you to go this way because what you're doing is very dangerous. And in MI, you don't do that because you want to hear why they're not going in that direction. So it's more like, what keeps you from doing that behavior? And what do you think about it? So again, client-centered, client-centered, client-centered. Okay, so how do I know that someone's committing to change? So one on the, oops, sorry. It's very sensitive. Okay, how do I know it? On the end, I hope to, maybe I will think about it. I suppose I will. That's not strong change talk. And then way over on the other side, I will, I promise, I vow, I shall, I give my word, I know I will. Do you hear? And then in between. So these are what you're going to hear. Weak to strong and in between. So go ahead and print out this chart and just look at it before you start talking with somebody and have it in your mind so that when you are talking to somebody, you know where they're at on the readiness. You know where they're at on their commitment. They're not going to say, yeah, I will never drink or use again, but you kind of know where they are in the process. So this is something you can just print out and have readily available. Kids will say different things, but this kind of gives you a sense of it. Okay, let me see where I'm at. Okay. I hear a dove outside my door. We have a lot of doves where I'm at. We have jays, blackbirds, and doves, and the dove's talking to me right now. All right. Stacy, yes. Are you talking? Stacy, are you talking?
You just said to print out.
Oh, it's in the slideshow, but I'll print it out for you. Don't worry. I will print it out and send it as a separate document because I like to.
I just didn't know if it was going to be. That's
okay.
Okay. Whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Work.
Okay. All right. So what I just did is I gave you the change talk, the language, the went over the concepts. And now we'll go back and I want to hear from you. What kind of ambivalence do you think Ernie's in? Did you hear preparatory change talk with our role play? Did you hear strong commitment language or moderate or weak or mild? What about assessing readiness? What do you think about that? So I'll write that in the chat box because that's a lot to throw at you. And then let's just have a conversation about it before our time is up. And while I'm typing, feel free to say.
I have a a
And
comment.
yes,
I was at a family event this weekend, and our one niece, her mom's passed on, but she came late, so we sent the other niece to look for her, and she woke her up, and she came, and so she tattled on her and said her car, the front window's all busted out, the back window's all busted out, and she has 5 kids. And we're like, oh, we know it was her man. And so when she came in, because all while we're talking about this, I thought, oh, there's another one. It's called jail talk. And so I thought about that, and because my sister, she's very mild-mannered, older, and calm. And she said, Shayna said, yeah, I told him I'm tired of that, and if that's how he's going to live, he has to move out. And she said, do you know what? That's jail talk, because you've said that for years now. And until I see you do it and kick them out, she said, I don't want to hear it. And I kind of felt sorry for her, but then again, I was like, she needed to hear that.
well, who says she needs to hear it? Are you judging it, saying she needs to hear it?
Yeah, I'm judging.
Okay, good. Well, thank you for owning it. That's good.
Yeah, because she's got kids in the home. And,
yeah, she's ambivalent.
Yeah.
She's very ambivalent.
So she kind of went and sat over by herself, and
yeah, she felt ashamed.
Yeah,
she felt alien, and she goes, you guys are going to judge me. I'm going to go sit over here where I can still be a part of, but I feel embarrassed. Yeah.
She was sulking. And so later, I told my other niece, that's her same age, I said, I'll go over and talk to her later. And she said, oh, well, maybe she'll listen to you, a new voice. So my family, this is repeated behavior. And so, but it's so funny when we're talking about this, that jail talk, because I've heard it from other people. I've heard it from family years ago in substance use program. I heard that too. Yeah, I'm a change this time. I'm tired of, being drunk. I'm tired of losing all my money. And then as years have gone on, because, I'm older and I see the people in the community, and I see that they haven't changed, and some have lost their lives because of they did not change. And so, so we need to learn this. And I did. I said, it's good to see you. And she said, oh, when did you move back? Blah, blah, blah. And I said, where's the rest of your kids? And she said, they're at home. And I said, oh, do you want to go get them? And she said, no. I said, how'd you get here? She said, I walked. And I said, oh, do you think you can get help with getting your car fixed? And she said, I don't know. I said, okay, well, I don't have much, I tried to offer support, but in the back of my mind, I was like, man, I'm glad my sister whiplashed you with her tongue, because I was like, you need to hear that.
It feels good on some level, but it's not productive, right?
No.
It doesn't get you where you hope for her.
Yeah.
Yeah, where is her hope?
Right. So I was, and I don't know how I could help her, but I knew her mom, and when I was decades ago, and I worked at Swift Horse, her mom was my client, and that was a very hard case. And she eventually lost her life to substance use, and her dad. And so, and she's trying, so, try to give her some support. But so this is really good for me, because I'm like, and that's a common term in our family. We talk, yeah, it's just jail talk. They're just telling me that just to, so I won't lecture them. But now I need to maybe educate my sisters. We need to be a little bit more tolerant.
Well, and my spirit, where's your spirit?
Yeah.
What would your culture say about somebody in trouble? Would they say, screw you, get your act together? No, they wouldn't. Where's the culture in that?
And see, like my son, when he was talking about, my friend, he uses, and so that's my son. He always, and they're older, so they always say, yeah, I know, I'm gonna hear you say, and if they jumped off a bridge, would you jump off a bridge? And so they know all my sayings
Yeah.
that so I'm like, so this is giving me a new perspective on how to talk to people.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad, and I'm glad that you're relating to it too. I'm happy for you, actually, because if people are people in trouble, you're describing a person, a family member who's in trouble, and there's a lack of empathy for them being in trouble, right? There's that. My empathy for you is to tell you I'm worried about you and you need to change. That's my empathy. But I don't think that works. I mean, obviously it doesn't work. Otherwise people would say, sure, I'll go change. No problem. But it doesn't work that way because human nature isn't that way. And there's a lot of shame. There's a lot of hopelessness. There's a lot of shame. There's a lot of that trauma response that Kellen was talking about that you're also dealing with. So how do you deal with somebody who's traumatized? Well, you show compassion.
Yeah.
You offer kindness, which is more cultural, I think, is to be kind.
Yes, that is very correct.
Yes. So is that kind? Is what
Yeah.
is that statement to her? Oh, that's just jail talk, or that judgmental statement. Is that kind? No, it's not kind. But the intention behind it is kind, right? The intention is, I care enough about you to say what is true. We all see what is true, and we just desperately want you to change because we don't want to lose you. That's the energy. But that's more about us. It's not about them.
Yeah.
I think we need to understand why they're not changing. What's happening to them inside? What are they carrying around inside that's hard for them to commit to making any changes? And so you have to take your kindness, your worry, your compassion, and you have to take that and do it in a kind way towards them, and then say, geez, you know what's going on. Tell me what gets in the way, because she knows what's going on. She's told you.
Yep.
And instead of judging that as jail talk, I think is what you said.
Yeah.
I wouldn't judge it. I'd say, well, geez, you really do know what's going on. Tell me what makes it hard for you to act on that, because you're not acting. So tell me what's going on.
Oh, that's a good one. I'm going to write that down.
Yeah, that person's living that life. They know what that life is. They also may not, after what you just said, that person may not know how to change. You just described a family context where she watched her mother die from substance abuse. And so where did she learn how to not do that? My guess is she may not know how to change. She only knows what she knows. She knows how to survive. And that's a good thing. She does know how to survive. But she also is struggling. I'm struggling. I don't know how to change. I don't know how to do this. And what would people think? Or where would I go? Or who could I talk to that? Or, there's all kinds of emotion there. And they also, a lot of people with substance abuse, they also self-judge. So they're self-judging on top of you judging, which is double self-judge, which is double judgment. So if you hear people judging, if you hear yourself judging, okay, what's behind the judgment? I care about you. I worry about you. I don't want you. I don't want to lose you. Or she's self-judging. I've messed up my life. I said I wasn't going to be like my mother, and yet here I am behaving just like her. How did that happen? That's the person suffering from substance use. How did that happen? Oh, I can't think about it right now. It's too painful.
Yeah.
I can tell you, as someone who's a recovering addict, I can tell you that my family was like that with me, and all it did was make me stay away. I isolated from my family more because I knew every time I go home, I was going to get a lecture and hear everything I already knew, what was going on, hear about how big of a mess up I was all over again. And so I would avoid going home, or I would lie about things that were going on in my life because it was easier to lie and make things look like it was okay or better than it was than to be judged. So my mom had no idea half the things that were going on in my life because I didn't want her to lecture me about it. So I would hide things from her. So she never knew the whole picture of everything going on, because like what you were saying, like I already knew what my problems were. I already knew that I needed to change this and that, but it was like going around my family was so hard to me. I had to like prepare myself every single time to get beat up, and I guess in better lack of terms of saying it. So I had to prepare myself for that every single time I went home, and then think about how you can avoid going back for a while, you know? So, I mean, just coming from a recovering addict, that's what it did with me, is it made me more isolated from my family and just keep secrets and not let anyone really know what was going on. So yeah, I can totally see how, you know, I like what Kathy's saying. It's got to be like a non-judgmental approach and make you feel like, hey, I'm here for you and I care about you and I want to support you, and not, and because if all you get is the tongue lashings, you won't. It's like, I already know what I'm going to hear when I go home. I'm already prepared for it. I already know how I'm going to respond, and I already know well, you know what I mean? It just becomes like a broken record.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you for sharing, Jamie, because you're right. Because even, do you know, with my one son, I'm just really hard on him. I just realized, because I'll say, do you know what, let me get that recording out so you can just listen to it, because I'm tired of telling you, you know, you can live a better life. And I realize now, oh, that's probably really irritating him.
Well, he's not ready, but it's like, you know, there's a genuine sadness that you feel when somebody's dying in front of you by substance abuse. There's a genuine sadness. And especially if you're a mom and you're seeing a child suffer, and that's suffering. And so it's like, what do I do with that? You know, how do I handle that myself? Because you're feeling them suffering. You can see it. You can see how they're suffering. You can feel it. So what is that way that would be more productive? And I think that, think about that. What would be the way? Just acknowledging, you know, I am so sad watching you suffer. I see the suffering and I'm sad about it. And I don't know what to do to help you. And I want to help you. You know, what if we turned that energy around to something like that, showing compassion, showing kindness, being humble. You know, we don't know what their life is like. We assume that we know what their life is like, maybe because we've seen it a lot. But what is their experience of that life like, you know, truly? And I don't know, Jamie, what would have happened if your family talked to you that way? Do you think you might tell them more? Do you think you might feel more ashamed? I mean, tell us what you think about that. And anyone else who wants to contribute.
I guess for me personally, yeah, I feel like that's why I'm different with my kids, I guess, because I felt like I wish my parents or my mom would have been more like, how can I help you? What is there? I mean, it just like, if it was easy, like I wasn't being judged, and like they were wanting to help me and not just lecture me and make me feel bad about stuff I already felt bad about. So like I have the same thing going on with my son, and not as bad as what I was into, but he's making some choices that aren't the greatest. And I was around him this weekend, and I just told him like, hey, I just want you to know how much I enjoy being around you. And I asked him, hey, do you plan on going back to school? And he said, yeah. And I just kind of rolled with what he was saying and just told him like, well, if you ever needed my help to help you figure that out, let me know. And I know you don't, I know you're not where you want to be right now. And if you need my help with anything, you just know I'm here for you. And my mom was never like that with me. It was always, you should be, and, I was her expectations versus me. And it was really hard. I felt like I could never measure up. And so I am different with how I approach my kids because of that. And my kids do open up and tell me a lot more stuff than I ever told my mom. You know what I mean? So I think it's because they know I'm not going to judge them, and I'm not going to lecture them. And it's let me see how we can figure this out, or how can I help you, you know, kind of like that. So I do feel like it would have helped me more. Yeah.
You did an honoring, actually. When I was listening, I think, oh yeah, so you honored them. So the honoring was to acknowledge that it's their decision. You can't make it for them. I'm here to support you. I'm here to help you figure it out when, you know, if you need me. So the if you need me part is when you're ready, if you're ready. You also said something like, I know what you're going through, but you didn't say it in that way. But it's like, I know that you're going through something. I know that you're dealing with something, and I'm not here to solve it for you, but I'm here to support helping you figure it out. Yeah. Well, okay, Kellen's saying shame is one of the hardest things to recover when you don't see it. And I think a lot of times there's a lot of shaming on those in recovery when it's taking them time in their healing journey. That is very true. You have to be careful that you don't impose your way of getting sober onto others. You know, that you don't assume there's only one way to get healthy. And shame, I think it's okay to call it that, because maybe they don't have the words, and maybe they don't know that it's normal. You know, it's normal to feel this way. And you might just offer a word. Okay, well, you know, that's what we call shame. And shame, and then describe it. Shame is when we are bad. We think we are bad. Guilt is when we've done something bad, but we know we're okay. And so you might have to educate people about the difference. So are we talking about you feeling guilty, or are we talking about you feeling ashamed? And that's a very different conversation. Oh, I'm feeling guilty that I ended up in the ER in Jeb's case. Well, we can talk about that, versus I don't want to talk to you because I feel so ashamed that, you know, I'm screwed up. I did something really bad. I'm a bad person. And helping people to understand, well, what are we talking about? Are we talking about you feeling ashamed, or are we talking about you feeling guilty? And do you know the difference? With young people, I don't think they necessarily know the difference. I would assume they wouldn't. With your niece, Jean, was your niece?
Yes.
Does she know the difference between feeling guilty about what she's doing versus feeling ashamed? I'm hearing her feel ashamed.
Yeah, I would like to have that was the first big family gathering since I've moved back.
Yeah.
So I would like to have, and that's why I wanted to move home, is because I can see how I can offer support to my family and of that. And so I would like to have another conversation with her. And I want to share, I had a nephew, he brought his hand drum, so he sang a couple of round neck songs. So my other niece, she went over and she grabbed her hand and said, come on. And she goes, I don't know how to dance. And she goes, that's all right, we don't either. So, you know, and so she was smiling, and I could see, and then the one little girl she brought, they were enjoying themselves. So I just got to thinking, I would say, you know, I'm so glad you're there. So when I see her, I can say, you know, I'm so glad you're there, and I'm sorry I didn't have the time to talk to you more, and that I would like to, you know, if you want to share with me, you know, I'm here to listen. And because I know you're trying, because she just got a new job, and at the shelter, at the women's shelter. So we were I said, I'm just proud of you. That's good, because and so, but now I have a better perspective on how to talk with people, and try to, you know, remember that Dakota way, you know, that is to compassion, and we're here to support each other on this journey. And that, you know, we're all human, and that, you know, especially with my kids, I'm, you know, I like to lash them with the tongue, but I have to remember they're adults, and, you know, they have their rights too, and to live their lives the way they want to, you know, not the way I lecture them to. But I need to be more open-ended and have more compassion. And do you know, pre-COVID, every day I would pray that if there was someone that needed help, I would help them. And a lot of times I would get chewed up by my kids because I would pick up a hitchhiker, and this is in Arizona, but I would know who to help. And I would know if it said no or a question, I knew I would stop. But I heard a lot of interesting stories from people that I would pick up and give a ride to. And then when COVID happened, we didn't go anywhere. But I just realized now I need to start praying again that I will remember how to help people, because that's what we do with the cultural aspect. Our life is surrounded by what we know the Creator gave us, and those are blessings. So, and I don't know everyone's viewpoint, but my brother, he reminded us of that where he says, Dakota way is every day is a good day. We have challenges, but we meet them and ask for help. And so, but I just wanted to share that. So thank you for listening.
And thank you for sharing it. I think hearing from you, especially with your wisdom and your life experience, is super important in this process. And a reminder, what is the Dakota way, and how does this fit in with that? That's important, very important. All right. Well, people are needing to leave.
Oh,
and that's a nice way to end our session today. So I want to remind you to come to July 12th, and we'll continue our conversation. And maybe the way to continue is to bring those experiences, and we'll further hone our skills in terms of how we can blend culture with MI, because those are the conversations we need to have. How do you see this working? The Dakota way, Lakota way. How do you see this working? It's more important for me to listen to you and just be available to you for comment and coaching when you're willing to practice. You all did a great job practicing, and I hope it met some of your training or learning needs today. So thank you for that, because that makes this come alive. And that's what you need to do, is make it come alive. So I bless you today. And in closing out, I want to bless you all today, and let today's always a good day. And whatever challenges come up for you today, I'm praying for you that you'll be able to meet them and be happy today with whatever challenges you're encountered and whatever blessings that you also are offered. So thank you again. See you on July 12th. And if you don't come on July 12th, I wish you the best. And I want you to know I'm always here for you if you change your mind and want to talk to us. We're always here for you. So thank you.
Take care.
Bye. Take care. Blessings.